Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we traveled to St. Paul, Minnesota to hang out at Flavor World headquarters. I don't know if you've seen him on YouTube, but you should check it out. Alumni of the show, Drew, thanks man, welcomed us to his home and creative space to interview a bass player that you may not be familiar with yet, but you've probably heard him play before, perhaps mostly known for his session work. But he does a lot more than that. So we'll get to it. Welcome to the show, Ian Martin Allison.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I've been looking forward to it.
Dude, thank you for coming over here. I like your flannel.
Cheers. Thank you, man.
Dude, you got a good color. I'm like all black right now, and you're all bright
man,
and happy.
Listen, I just got a chance to go out. I was in New York doing a record with Eric Hutchinson, who's an artist that I've played with for the past 7 years. And it was a sing-along record in the style of like protest artists of the 60s.
Oh, okay.
And so it was all about social justice, human rights. And he was like, here's the deal. I don't want to do black clothing. Right. Like, I don't want everyone to be in like all black clothing, like jean jackets and like black pants, which is pretty much all I wear, actually. Sure. and I was like, oh, damn, like, what do I have? And so I found this like crazy, colorful, like, you know, I don't know if it's a flannel or a jacket or whatever, but it's funny because I just put a post up with it on Instagram and people are like, oh, the jacket. So the joke is now, man, the jacket is my manager. It's like, it's gunning me for 25%. Like, it's the jacket's starting to run the show.
Where'd you get it?
It's Topo. It's this company out of, I think they're out of Colorado. They make like,
oh, wild.
They make like outdoor gear, kind of.
Cool. It's like the Colorado Patagonia.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not affiliated with them or anything. They just
cool.
make cool clothing, you know.
Dope.
So, yeah.
Well, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of the sponsors really quick. At the beginning, we got Hop and Barrel on the back on the sign here. That's the beer sponsor out of Hudson, Minnesota. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they got a brewery they opened a few years ago there.
Oh, cool.
Pretty known for like their sour beers and IPAs, but they're just cool, fun people. They're guests on the show the
awesome.
same season as Drew, actually, which is tight.
Season 4.
5, I think he was on season 5.
I was hoping I would get it right.
And then I also got some of this isopropyl alcohol here from my buddies over at Heady Hut, Eau Claire. You can find them on Instagram. They're basically like a pipe shop in Eau Claire that just popped up. And then my other buddy, Steve's Hemp, he was a guest on the show too. And he does a bunch of the like Delta 8s and different, you know, topicals and stuff. You can find steveshemp.com with promo code PASSION. You get 20% off everything over there. Dude's actually just really cool. He's only 25 and just opened up a storefront, and I'm painting a big mural. Like if you've seen on my Instagram, I'm painting these big monsters. It's like at his shop. So yeah, he's a homie. Anyways, to get back to it, who are you and what are you passionate about?
Okay. Yeah. I'm a bass player. I'm a father. And I'm passionate about trying to make both of those things work.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. I mean, being in the Twin Cities, right?
You're a dad
and trying
too,
to be
man.
big. Yeah. The thing is like I go to LA a lot for a lot of interviews, and I see all these people hustling, trying to make like entertainment things work.
Yeah.
They're all working literally all the time.
Constantly.
And I'm like, but I can't do that.
Right.
But I'm like placing the same expectations on myself for being as productive, but you got to balance things.
Dude, okay, let me ask you this. Do you feel like when you became a father, it actually in some ways made you more productive because you had to get the shit that you had to do done in the time that you had to get it done?
I think in general, it made me more intentional with how I spend my time, period.
Yes.
So I became a father young. I got married young. I got married at 21 and planned both my kids, but had my first kid at 22. It was during that time frame when I had a newborn that I was like, okay, well, I don't like what I do. What do I want to do? What legacy do I want to leave behind? Like, because this stuff matters to me now.
Right.
And that's when I opened my skateboard shop. I was 23. So that'll be 8 years in April already, which is like mind blowing. It's been that long.
So sick.
But really, like since then, you have to try to balance so many things. And actually, this is a random kind of tangent, but it's along the same lines. They ask that same question to skateboarders that come out of the Midwest.
Oh.
That question comes up a lot because they're like, well, how, you know, what do you do? Because you can't skate for part of the year. Well, there's indoor skate parks in this area, which is part of it. But all of them have the same answer. And it's, well, we get cooped up for so much of the year. By the time nice weather comes out, we're on fire, like trying to hit it, you know?
Cannot wait. Man, I have a friend that moved from here to Southern California, and he said this thing that because of the lack of winter, that you can always just do the thing next weekend. He's like, so you can always just go to the beach next weekend. Oh, we don't really have time. We'll just do it next weekend. But in the Midwest, dude, there is outdoor activities. There's no next weekend because winter's coming or summer's coming or whatever it is. Like, it's going to change, and you have to make sure that you get it in when you can.
Yeah, and I think Minneapolis, Twin Cities area is like, it's big enough that if you're intentional about things, you're not limited too much. I mean, you can't really be a TV star necessarily, but most things, it's a big enough city, and with how much on the internet, like how much of work and things happen via the internet, you can get a lot done. Plus, flights are not that expensive. I go out to California all the time, obviously. I mean, I was messaging you a few days ago, and I was like, oh, you're not even in the Midwest right now. But anyways, so if people want to go look, find out more information about you, hear some of your stuff, how can they best follow you, find you, and get in contact?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, okay, my biggest community and the place that I am the most prevalent and engaged is Instagram. And I don't even have a website, which is so lame. It's so lame, but it's just true. I really engage with the Instagram community. I love it there. I've been really intentional about building that community and really thinking about those people that pay attention to what I do as like cherished people in my life versus like all followers, network, haters, critics.
Yeah.
I think of them as a community, and I try to really foster that community. So Instagram, it's all three of my names because Ian Allison was taken. It's Ian Martin Allison. That's the spot that I'm most active.
Yeah, that's where I am too. I mean, you can find a lot of things. The problem is if you are trying to balance too many platforms, you know, like I was just talking about this on my Instagram stories the other day about Facebook. I'm like, I can't, it's just, I have my shop's Instagram, I have my personal Instagram. I have to try to keep up with my email addresses for both. I got my shop phone number and my personal phone number. I got kids. It's like, if you can find one space, and I forget who I was talking to on an earlier season, but they made a good analogy about Instagram really being like your own personal TV channel.
Right.
You know, so the people that tune into that channel consistently and are the ones that are commenting on it, like genuinely, they care enough to give you that much time.
Yes.
It makes sense to want to give them time. I meet a lot of these people that like, I didn't think we were good friends necessarily. I didn't know them that well, but I have now know people really well, but only through Instagram. I know people I've never met in person that are like, definitely homies of mine. Like I talk to often, and it's just through Instagram. Man,
and I mean, I've seen that by checking out your account, like how you foster that. And I had this epiphany where like I would see people in my space, like other bass players or other musicians that I admired, when someone would comment on something, they would just say nothing. And I thought, and I don't know where I heard it. I don't think it's an original thought. I'd love to be able to take credit for this, but I don't think I can. But that I want to treat the digital interaction the same as I would treat an on-street in-person interaction. So if someone came up to me and said, hey man, I really love what you played on that record, I would not turn around and pretend I didn't hear them and walk away to be cool. But that's what so many people do.
They do.
Yeah, because they don't want to seem thirsty or whatever, like responding to every comment. But I want to treat the people that give me love, I want to reciprocate with love. Yeah. And that's saying thank you. Or swinging into their profile and checking out what they do and saying like, oh, that post, like post 3 of yours last week on, you know, April, whatever, like you sound great when you do this thing. Giving a little bit of that back, I just think fosters way more of a community vibe. And it's how I would interact with someone on the street.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important, how you interact with people. I was interviewing Jack Lyons, who owns this clothing company called Pythia, and he told me that the first 5,000 followers, first 5,000 people that even liked a photo, he DM'd and had a conversation with every single one of them.
It's incredible.
And that's how you really build relationships with people. And I always I use the term cool guying it. And like, I hate it when people cool guy me.
Yes, it's the worst.
If you're too cool to respond to me, I'm like, wow, now I really don't want to give you any of my time.
Exactly.
And as you get bigger, like, yes, you have to have a certain amount of like boundaries for how much time you're willing to spend. If you have way too many whatever, you'll respond to DMs and stuff later on. But But people's expectations change as your numbers and stuff grow too, right?
Yes.
You know, you don't necessarily have to respond to every single comment.
Right.
As long as you do periodically and they've seen that you have,
yes,
then they're like, oh my God, look, he responded.
There's an opportunity to get a response or something. Yeah.
Which I think is super, super cool.
Yeah.
So you grew up not around here though, right? You grew up in Montana.
Yeah.
So what was the first instrument that you picked up? Was it always bass? Were you like a 15-year-old kid with the swoopy hair and that was what you were drawn to? Or what?
I was this tall. So I'm 6'3". I was this tall in the 7th grade.
Oh my God.
And I was, or close. I was like 6'1" maybe in the 7th grade. And I did play basketball.
Okay.
So, but I didn't play basketball because I was good at it.
Sure.
I played because I was tall and I was a center and I was awful. And there was a moment where all of my family was in town from, actually from Minneapolis. I had like my cool uncle, my mom and dad, my sister were in the stands. And I got the ball, which for me was rare because I was bad.
I was bad too. I played too.
Okay. Yeah. And I posted up and took a shot and I missed. And I got the rebound, which was also like incredibly rare.
Sure. And
I was like, strange, but I'm going to have another opportunity. I took a second shot, brick. I got the rebound the second time and somehow it was like easy to get it. And everyone was like screaming from the stands. I was like, what's happening? Well, they must be saying like, go Ian, you're the greatest. Third opportunity, took a shot and I missed a third time. And then a wiry athletic player from the other team like grabs it and lays it up into the same basket and is like, thanks. No. And I was shooting at the wrong fucking basket. Dude, I've told that story a lot, but and I look into the stands, man, and like my whole family is just like, they have their head in their hands. It was mortifying. No. It was mortifying. And so I said to my mom, I can't do this anymore. And she's like, what? And I said, sports. Like, I'm so bad at it.
Yeah.
She said, well, you have to do something. I said, great. I just want to play video games. She said, and not that.
Yeah.
And that was like way pre-Twitch, you know, like way before like you could make your living playing video games.
Before Xbox Live at that point, I would think.
Oh, right? Yeah. Dude, I'm 43. So this is 8-bit Nintendo zone, you know. Yeah. So and she was like, well, you have to do something. And I was like, I think I want to play the bass. I had an uncle and a cousin. Shout out to Roman and Allison, who were so instrumental in showing me the way on this instrument. She was like, okay. And she rented me a bass guitar and that was it. So sorry, that's the long version.
Sure.
But I had no identity. I had no musical identity. I had no identity of any kind. I was like a tall, awkward, gangly kid. And the bass guitar was huge. And then, of course, via that, you get into a band, and I got into a band really young, and I was playing music with my friends. And
what band was that?
It was called Down and Above. At the time, though, we went through a bunch of different name changes, but essentially, a great friend of mine, Dave Young, who lives in Minneapolis, we moved out to Minneapolis together, and then with our drummer too, Zach Young, we all moved pretty much as a unit from Kalispell, Montana, our little town, out to the Midwest. And we enjoyed some level of like regional success and toured and did that whole thing. But I mean, I was in that rock band from probably some version of that band from about 13 to 30.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Were those guys the same age as you?
They were just 1 year older. The drummer Zach was 1 year older, and then Dave, the guitar player and singer, was 2 years older. So I was like the young guy. I was like the kid.
You guys were playing bars when you were not old enough to drink?
Yes, exactly. Cool. All that. You know, playing, like, that's where I really cut my teeth, is in that zone of like playing bad covers in like a.
Did you guys have a lot of original music, or did you mostly cover stuff?
Oh yeah, no. So we started out playing covers, you know, and then we completely dropped that at some point after we moved out here. We did like a bunch of creepy cover bars, you know, and then made enough money to make the first EP, right? Okay. And then once we did that, we stopped doing it.
What triggered you to move to Minneapolis in particular? Was it just because you had family out here, or what?
Dude, it's so wild. The singer of that band has a brother whose name is Alec, who lived out here and was going to be the singer in the band. And Dave, my friend, just pitched me this vision of like, dude, we're going to move to Minneapolis. My brother's going to sing in the band. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. And I'd been to Minneapolis. I knew it. And I'm like, that sounds cool and comforting. And it turns out then Alec wasn't going to be the singer in the band, but we just did it anyway. And, you know, I mean, it was like...
Did you get a tiny little apartment together?
I went to college, actually, and those other two dudes just worked. I lived with Zach, the drummer, for a little while, but I went to McAllister. Like, I was in St. Paul. And it's funny because my mom was like, you can't I think you should go to college. And I was like, I just want to rock. And she's like, yeah, but you're good at school. And I was good at school, and I liked school.
Yeah.
And so I went to school, and I didn't study music. I studied political science and communication and film. And
some of that translates.
Yeah. I mean, it was, really for me, it was just a really great buffer between being a kid and being an adult.
Yeah.
Had some really cool experiences, got to study abroad in Scotland, and then all the time in the weekends we were just playing shows. So I would drive off that campus and be with my band and play shows.
Do you live off of like student loan money, or what did you do for work during that time? Did you make enough money from the shows?
Okay, so I got a scholarship. So I was playing in the jazz band, but I wasn't actually majoring in music.
Sure.
And then I worked a job. Yeah, dude, I showed up late to the meeting where they were assigning jobs. And I thought, damn, like it's going to be cafeteria or janitorial for sure.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we already gave out the jobs, but I guess we have this one left. It's game room attendant. Do you want to? And I was like, game room attendant? They're like, yeah, I guess you'd be like playing pool. And I was like, sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, I was the game room attendant like all 4 years.
Solid.
Yeah, it was great,
I mean, honestly,
man.
though, the jobs that are on campus, I went to Duluth for a year, and I dropped out of college after a year. I was on the dean's list. I did well, but I was like, I just don't think this is relevant to what I want to do. But anyways, I had a job on campus too. I worked at like a little pizza place. Like I was making pizzas and like grinders and stuff, and it was like kind of tight. Because it was with other college kids and stuff, and like I could walk there from my dorm. And University of Minnesota Duluth is all connected underground, so you don't actually have to go outside at all.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which is really nice because in the middle of the winter, it's just like, absolutely horrible. You've been killing it forever, apparently. So, when was the first like big tour that you went on, and what was that experience kind of like?
I mean, I have been touring it feels like almost all my life on kind of like a more of a DIY situation. Sure. But I got my first like bus, which feels like such an upgrade. Like I was touring in this rock band, that we just heard, that was Down and Above. That was my like childhood band, right?
Right.
And I was touring in, a van, like
Sweet.
15 passenger van, right?
Sure.
And I went from that, and I started to work with Lori Line, who's like a piano, kind of like holiday. She specializes in like holiday music, and she does a tour around the holiday time, right?
Sure.
But that was a bus, and that was like, wow. I mean, like it was a gig that it was paying me like real money. I was on a bus, it was like super pro musicians, and gig was all on Upright.
How did you get how did you get reached out to for that?
I started to teach at a little private college. I started to teach bass at a place called North Central University, actually a small private Christian school downtown Minneapolis.
Yeah, I've heard about them.
And then from that, I just met a network of people, and I got this audition.
Cool.
Right? And I went, and I mean, my upright playing at the time still is like pretty dismal. I'm an electric bass player for sure.
Sure.
But Lori took a chance on me, and it was really cool. And I played with her for probably 4 years until we had our first child, my daughter Everly. And then I ended up quitting that band and thinking like, oh, well, that's it. I'll never tour again because now I'm a dad, and then there are other opportunities. I mean, the next one was Eric Hutchinson. So I've been with Eric now for about 7 years, and we've done some really amazing tours. We got to go out with Kelly Clarkson and Pentatonics opening up for them. And that was an amazing tour, 10 weeks, all the big stadiums, in the US. It was incredible. But the first one, dude, was Lori Line playing that holiday music, man. I was doing costume changes in that too, like getting into like a Dickens outfit with a dumb top hat and like wearing like, helping kids get into like 12 Days of Christmas outfits and shuffling them on stage to participate. I mean, it was,
but it
was great.
What's cool though is like all the things you learn from doing that type of thing that can translate.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it may not be exactly what you envision, but even like what you were just saying about teaching, that isn't what you necessarily think is what's going to get you on tour.
Right.
But I talk to people a lot about that, where I'm like, if you want to be anywhere in a creative realm, as long as you're continuously doing something that is beneficial to you on that path, it doesn't have to be exactly what you want to be doing. But you can then be gaining some kind of skills, and you never know when those opportunities are going to pop up. The whole thing of like, I lucked out, Like, that's not usually how it works.
No, it isn't
It's
how it
usually
works.
you're putting yourself in the right kind of position around the right kind of people,
Yes.
and then working hard. And
Yes.
eventually, it's just a matter of time before the right opportunity,
That's
you're
so
the one
true.
who's right there for it.
Yeah, dude. And my wife and I, check this out. Before we were married, we went to this couples counseling thing because we were fighting a lot.
Because
And
you're
we
gone
needed
all the time?
Yes, that
Yeah.
didn't help, right?
Sure.
And something that the counselor said to us was like, "Hey, write down. I want you to write down a relationship goal, the first one that comes to your mind, and I want you to write down a professional goal, like something that relates to the two of you and something that relates to just you potentially. And the first, and don't judge it, and write it down, go. And the first thing I wrote down when I wrote down my professional goal was support my family by playing the bass. And it was really an eye-opening sentence, because before that, I had never maybe even admitted to myself that I wanted a family,
Sure.
and it didn't say by playing in my band, by playing with such and such artist. It just said by playing the bass. And honestly, man, like, it gave me this width and a bit of breath to think, oh, what else can I be doing? Like, I want to have a family and I want to be a musician, but I'm fine to teach. Dude, I'm fine to play a wedding gig. I love being on the road and opening up or playing with an amazing artist. I love playing on records, but I like all of those things. I've played plenty of church services too. That's like, man, like nothing gets shit on more than playing in church and playing like wedding gigs. In the music world, it's like, oh, those things are not cool. That's where I cut my teeth.
That's where a lot of people
Yes,
do, though.
dude.
I mean, you look at a lot of like photographers in particular,
Yes.
and they make their money during wedding season, but that's
Weddings.
what allows them to have creative freedom to not
Exactly.
necessarily make money on all kinds of other projects.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, I think people have a limited like belief because they look at like their, I don't know, the people they look up to, right? Like
Yeah.
their idols, and they go, okay, well, this person does this full time.
Yes.
Okay, but it took a lot to get to that point, you know? And in
Absolutely.
a creative realm, there's just not as much money to be made as people think there is. There really isn't. So a lot of people have different streams of revenue. Like
Right.
for me, you know, people think, I think they have an idea because the shows, a lot of people know about the show where I live, that it's like a big thing. But I don't make money from the radio station. I don't make hardly any money off my show. Actually, like I spend more on it than I make the majority of the time.
Yeah.
But I'm able to do that because I make some money off of my shop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So because I have money coming from that, and I have money coming from art and from different things, that's how all together I can kind of make it work. And I always like use the example of when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pro skateboarder and I wasn't good. So I wasn't going to be a pro. Very
Yeah.
obviously to me, I wasn't going to be. But in order to still be skateboarding for a living, that doesn't mean you have to be a pro.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to do that.
Right.
And so by opening a skateboard shop, it was like, I can do all the things that I love out of skateboarding. I can still skate as much as I want. I can be involved throwing all kinds of events and sponsoring people, doing videos, doing all this type of
Yes.
stuff, except I get to be home every day.
Yeah, and you become the ambassador essentially, right? You end up creating the community.
Right.
Like that's something too where like if you can imagine a world where you're not maybe the center star of attention. You know, I
Yeah.
think like everybody, when they do something creative, they want to be the best at it as a kid. But if you can pivot and understand how you fit into the larger community
Right.
of it, it can create opportunities for you that you never thought. I mean, you probably as a kid, you're just like, I'm just going to skate, but you probably never thought you'd be doing a podcast and have a
Right.
successful skateboard shop
Right.
to where it like fosters this whole thing. And I mean, that's like getting in touch with those possibilities. It's a head thing, right?
Yeah.
It's about like your mental space. And it's about being able to be happy with a variety of things in your field.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have a limited belief of they think it has to be a certain way, but really it's exactly what you're talking about. And another random analogy is when I talk about money with people, I'm like, it's not money that you want ever. Nobody wants money. It's paper. You don't actually want what that is.
Yes,
you want
yes,
what
yes.
that can get you.
What it
the
enables.
house that you can get, the status that you can get,
Yeah,
the
dude.
vacations you can take or whatever. So it's not the money. That's one way to get to the other things that you want to get to.
Yeah.
But really, that's what it is, right? It's like, okay, so what is it that I actually want? Very few people slow down enough to really think about it.
It's so true.
They're just used to looking at this goal, this pipe dream, and they're just chasing it, and they have this tunnel vision,
Yes.
and they're not really sitting back and going, okay, well, do I just want to play the bass, or do I really want to be traveling all over?
Right.
Traveling all over isn't as glamorous as it seems, because I'm not home with my kids. Like, I
Right.
want to be home, so what do I actually need to be doing?
Definitely.
And it's very possible to do that through other outlets. And most creatives have multiple streams of income.
Right.
That's what I've found out about pretty much everybody that I know. They
Yeah.
all do that. Even the ones that are really successful. You
Right.
look at like the superstars, people like Rihanna, and they have businesses and stuff on the side.
Right.
Like everybody has multiple streams of income.
Did you have any kind of ethos around, like when you started to make your skate shop, did you have an idea of like how you wanted to invest in it, or like how you wanted to build it, or did you kind of just go with your gut? Like what did you do? How did you execute on that skate shop?
Well, I think your gut is right 99% of the time.
Yeah.
And when it's wrong, you should still probably go with it, because that's when you're going to actually learn a lesson anyways. You should
that's so
pretty much
interesting.
go that direction. But I had a general idea. I had managed other stores and stuff before, and I had gotten my space in January and didn't open it until April, and worked full-time at Verizon, and then a 12-hour day on my day off at Hellsberg Diamonds, where I used to manage to like make money and kind of set it up. But I wanted to, skateboard shops, it's a core skateboard shop. They have these everywhere, right? All over the country, all over the world. So like the idea of what it is already kind of there.
Yeah.
You don't have to come up with something completely unique to do that. You just kind of have to take your own take on it.
Yep.
And I wanted to kind of base it off of what the skateboard shop was when I was growing up. It was called Underloud, and it changed ownership several times. But when I hung out there all the time was when I was like 14. And it was like the clubhouse kind of. It's like where we all hung out.
It was
and
a spot.
you didn't think about buying. I mean, you just bought stuff because that's where you got it, but you never really thought about buying stuff. That wasn't the point. You just hung out there. And that was what I wanted to build. I wanted to build something where I didn't sell anything to anybody, and I just built this community hub where when you need something, that's just where you go. It's selling the store, not selling any item.
Yes.
Now, because I had been in retail for a long time, I understood, hey, you have to have a profit margin on some things. Skateboards don't really have a profit margin. How do I recover that? Branded merchandise. My own t-shirts. I make, for a $150 skateboard, I make the same amount of profit as I do off a $55 sweatshirt.
Right.
It's kind of ridiculous. But by recognizing that, okay, this is where I can make up some of that money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's because I had already learned about a lot of that retail stuff that it put me in a good position to be able to do it.
Well, and if you didn't have the community, no one would want to buy your sweatshirt.
Well, and that's why I didn't do it either yet, right? So like we never had a free public skate park in town, and we had fundraised since I was little. Like I made t-shirts when I was 15 that said build us a park already, raising money for a skate park. We finally got our first free park, and it's tiny, but we got it when I was 22. It was the summer before I opened my shop.
Yeah.
We got it. We threw a big skate contest. Me and the other adults that still skated were like, wow, there's a bigger community than we thought here. Because this was, kind of before Instagram was big. This was when like you texted your 2 or 3 friends. If they wanted to skate, cool. If they didn't, you never saw anyone else. You thought the community wasn't there,
right.
Because you didn't have a place. So we got that. Way more people were there than I thought. And it was like, okay, so there is a community.
Yeah.
And so then I was skating there every single day after the skate park got built. And we were kind of all talking amongst ourselves like, well, so who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to do it. I actually didn't want to do it right away. I wanted to just invest in it because I was making plenty of money, but anyways, eventually it came to it where nobody else wanted to do it, and I'm like, this is actually what I've always wanted to do. So I talked to family about it, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to send it. But that is a big part of it. Part of the reason it worked from the beginning was because I already knew everyone that skated in town. Yes. I already skated the contest with all the kids and stuff. Right. So I already knew all of them, and I knew that was what was important. Again, it's selling. I tell people in business advice is sell yourself as the solution to somebody's needs rather than I'm going to do this exact thing. It's like I can help you with various things. In my shop, this is where you want to be if you're a part of the skateboarding community for a lot of reasons. The videos and everything else. You build that culture. Right. Then people, honestly, like you go to the skate park and you're riding a board not from my shop, people ask you like, why? We have a shop here. You should just go there. Yeah, and I don't even have to tell anybody that. Yeah, that's just like it's baked in because it's what you've made. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's important to like build that culture. So, getting back to you though, how did you then once you had that like you figured that out, hey, I don't have to necessarily travel. Was that immediately when you decided you wanted to pursue session work, or like how did that come about? Yeah, so I got off the road, right, and we had our first kiddo, and then it was like, well, I guess I'm just going to be home and just doing this stuff. And then
my investment into Minneapolis and into this community is what then blew up kind of like the next chapter for me. So what I started to do was really dive in and start to think about the people in my community as stars, as people that I wanted to work with, not trying to chase, not like, oh, if only I could play with Ariana Grande. Like, I've never thought that. I mean, of course I'd love to, right? But I want to think about Mike Michael from the Orange Goodness, or Carl Loudon, or Haley, or like there are these artists in Minneapolis that I play with, or Jeremy Messersmith, that I absolutely love, and I believe in them, and I like that they're underdoggy. I like that it's not some highfalutin, like, you know, venture capital, you know, like marketed LA slick thing. Like, I like that it's here. It reminded me, I got to tour Motown Records when I was on tour in Detroit. And when Berry Gordy started Motown, he just did it with people in his community. There was a girl named Aretha, the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Franklin, that sang over there, and he heard her and she was great. And there are the dudes that sang on the corner and they became the Temptations. I mean, really, man, like he created Motown Records in Detroit as a result of belief in that community. And that was super inspirational to me. And it kept me from thinking, oh shit, well, I've got to get to Nashville, LA, or New York. I'm like, well, I mean, what if I can do something in Minneapolis? And so it was that spirit that then led to playing with a bunch of different artists here, and eventually getting the gig with Eric Hutchinson, who I've now been with. He's in New York, but I've been with him now for about 7 years, and we've made a lot of music together. It's been great. I think
so. I wonder if you'll agree with this perspective. I think people blow something up in their minds that this is what they want, this stardom or whatever it is, right? And for me, it was just like simply money. When I was 22, I was assistant manager for Verizon Wireless, and I made more money than I still make, which is kind of ridiculous, you know, working for myself, but I didn't enjoy what I did. But anyways, I had enough money to kind of do whatever I really wanted for the most part. But then when I opened my shop, I knew I had to cut back really significantly. And I realized I didn't really care about money that much anyways. I was just spending it because it was my day off. I want to do something that makes me happy today because I'm miserable every other day. But I wonder if you agree with that. Once you go and you tour the country and you play a lot of big things, you're on TV and whatever, you realize, okay, I mean, that was cool, but that's not really what I'm chasing though, right? So that helps it a little bit to come back then to somewhere like Minneapolis and realize, well, okay, well, what do I actually really want? I want to make cool music that I'm happy about. I need to make enough money to pay for my bills, but I don't need more money than that, and I don't care necessarily to be huge.
Dude, I am guided by this very simple, strange principle, and it is, if I feel like it's cool, like if someone says, hey, do you want to play on this record? Hey, do you want to do this tour? Hey, like present me with an opportunity. If I feel a welling, we all know what this feels like. And cool is like a real surfacey word, but you know when you feel it. If you're like, oh, cool. Like it's that welling feeling of excitement of the future. That's what I go by. And if I feel that feeling, I do it. And that always leads to something cooler, because if you're then following that feeling, and I should probably get into like setting goals and business goals, but I have always followed this feeling, and it has led me, I think, to very great happiness in terms of what I do for career, and it has led to money, because then, you know, well, this thing is so cool, it's only going to pay $50. That's fine, but then, because I love it and I think it's cool, I do a really good job and I pour myself into it. Another artist maybe sees that and they ask, right? Or there are other opportunities that stem from it. So I am really very much like gut led by that welling feeling of cool or whatever it is. Like if I get excited about the ask, I'm in.
Well, here's the thing, and I was talking to you about it a minute ago about the money thing.
Yeah.
It's not about the money, though. It's about what the money is going to get you. So what are your actual goals? Are your goals to play music that you really enjoy? Are your goals to play with this person or that person or get in with this, you know, these people? People want to work with who they enjoy being around.
Yes.
So if you're only working on things where you're naturally actually enjoying it, people are going to see that. The right people are going to see that. And that's when opportunities are going to present themselves. Because if you just try to act like, okay, I'm worth this amount, and I'm not going to wiggle on it, you're closing a lot of doors around you.
Dude,
and
yes.
people don't want to work with people like that.
It's
they
awful.
just don't want to work with people
I know
like
that.
that.
And I made that mistake in my early like quote unquote professional career, where I was like, oh well, if there's a rehearsal, it's an extra however many dollars. Like, dude, I mean, I've screwed up some opportunities. And then actually this idea of following that feeling of cool came from a bass player that I love named Justin Meldal Johnson, who plays with Beck and has played with Nine Inch Nails, and he's been out on the road with St. Vincent. He's incredible. And he talked about that, where like, you know, even after producing like Paramore records, if someone sent him a thing to play on and it was $100, he would load up his car with bass guitars and drive into the canyon and play in someone's crappy home studio, because he thought it was cool. And that was always going to lead to other opportunities that were going to like galvanize his career. And that was really, really important to me, that thought.
Yeah, well, and also it's important to be able to not get into artist blocks. You want to always have creative juices flowing for your own self, or your own personal growth.
Yeah.
You're not going to grow when you're doing something you don't want to do the vast majority of the time. You're just kind of going through the motion.
So true.
But if you're doing something, okay, so maybe you're not really making money on this opportunity. Even if it doesn't necessarily lead to anything else, it's helping your brain flow. And it's helping you get into a good space to be able to create, which that has a value that you can't really put a dollar amount on.
Huge. And short of being like inspirational speakery, like this is an action step. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're good at something and you know it, offer it to someone without expectation of what you are going to receive after the offer. So if you're a musician, for instance, we all make stuff on our phone, and you know, like I have a little bass riff or whatever, and I record it on my phone, and there it stays, and I have hundreds of them. And go through your phone or whatever it is and find something that is good. It's your best shit, not some B-rate shit. It's your best shit. And then think of a friend or a talented person in your life that you want to work with, or that you just admire, and send it to them as a surprise and as a gift, and say, hey, this made me think of you, and I wonder if it inspires something for you. Period. Not like, oh, and let's collab on this. Oh, and if you hire me, my rate is no. Like it's a gift. And typically the way that's received is so powerful. It's a surprise and a delight. Maybe that artist is kind of having a bummer day and they hear something and they want to sing a melody over it now. And they do. And then they send it back to you in a voice memo and you go, oh, rad. And they're like, hey, could we actually, hey, like I have a gig coming up. Could you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has legs. When you give without expectation, it always leads to something so powerful, even if it's just a conversation or coffee, right? Like it always leads to good things. And that is also a great way to stay top of mind with people. Just send them stuff.
Yeah, see, I totally agree with you, because you hear that saying of like, you don't know until you ask. And I kind of don't agree with that one so much, because people ask me for things all the time, you know, because like the show is a promotional tool, you know, certainly that's not the full intent, but it will do that. So people will ask me all the time about being on the show and stuff. And asking actually kind of rubs people the wrong way if you're not offering when you ask.
Yes.
So I try not to do that, because I'll meet people that I know could help me really significantly. I know they could if they wanted to.
Yep.
If they wanted to, they would.
Right.
I'm not going to just ask for something that they're not going to do for me, because now that door's kind of closed.
I know.
You kind of wreck that relationship.
Yeah.
I had somebody reach out to me not long ago, and he kind of asked me, he's like, hey, it's a new year. I just wanted to get some advice from you. What do you think, like, what advice could you give me for this year? And I said, okay, here's one. Don't ever ask for something without first offering what you can do as well.
That's great.
If you just ask, almost always will that person say no. And not only that, but they're not going to keep you in mind now in the future. You're kind of burning the bridge without really realizing it.
Correct.
Most of the time. However, Ashwin Jacob was a guest a long while ago, and he was talking at a seminar, and he gave this example when there's a bunch of people there. He was doing basically a TED Talk type thing, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do something that's going to be more beneficial than anything else you're going to learn today. For 5 minutes, we're going to stop. I want you to shake hands with the person in front of you, to the left of you, and to the right of you. Tell them, this is what I do. This is what I can offer to anybody, and this is what I'm attempting to do.
I just got goosebumps. Yes, that's
right.
Powerful.
If you're not saying, hey, can you do this for me? Instead, if you're throwing it out there that these are the things I can do for other people and I'm trying to get here.
Yes.
Even if they can't necessarily help you, they know that you're going to do something for somebody else. They know you're going to have that right attitude. They'll make the connection for you for it to happen.
Yes, because it's not it's gift giving without expectation, right? And check this out, dude. So I work for a company now called Scott's Bass Lessons, or SBL. Yeah. They're out of the UK. They're a massive education platform. They're a huge media empire too. They have over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And I'm a presenter. I make coursework for them. I make a bunch of content for them. And how I got that job. So essentially it's Scott and I, we do a podcast together. I was a huge fan of his. And a complete nobody to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, man, how can I get on this dude's radar? And I did exactly what you just mentioned. I hit him up. I started to take Instagram really seriously when I turned 40 because I had a midlife crisis of like, shit, I've been in this band and then I've been a side musician for a decade. I need to control something. I need to start thinking about myself as a brand. As corny as that sounded to me, I knew that it was right for me.
It's so important, not to like interrupt you, but like to tell people how important it is to stay on brand and have a vision of this is who I am as a brand from that kind of standpoint is incredibly important.
Yes.
Having that, because it's not just about the image necessarily, right? Everything attached to it. That includes the story of this is where my brand's going.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why you want to be a part of what I'm doing. This is why you want to help with what I'm doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, keep going.
You're so right. And I had just resisted that because it felt like corporate corny for me for a while. And then I ended up giving into it in a way that felt real and good and true and like authentic for me. And I hit up Scott on Instagram DM, which is arbitrage. It is a land grab right now. The fact that you can contact someone via DM, it is ridiculous. And if you're doing it and you're asking for things, it's the wrong thing. You need to be doing it and giving things. So what I did is I hit up Scott Devine. I knew he looked at his DMs because he'd commented on a couple of my things. And I said exactly what you said. I said, hey, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. If you could ever use X, Y, and Z, I will do them for you for free for a year. So if I can help you out in any way, holler at me. And he said, oh man, wow, that would be amazing. Actually, I need X, Y, and Z. And I'm not planning on taking advantage of that offer. I'd like to pay you. Here's what dude. But if I would have been like, hey man, here's what I do. And if I would have been flossing and puffy chested, it wouldn't have been received the same way. I just said, I love what you do. I will work for you for free for a certain amount of time, period. Like I'll do whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll fit it in and it'll be great.
Yep.
And now that's, I mean, it is a huge part of my income, my creative output is making content for that channel and getting to do breakdowns on records that I love, interfacing with different musicians and bass players, getting to travel, do more sessions, work with companies. It has absolutely opened every door for me in the place that I want it most, which is in this like nerdy bass player niche community that I feel like so lucky to be a part of.
Well, that's what I was saying though about is like there's so many people out there that could open the doors if they want to, and when they want to, they will.
Right.
You can't be constantly begging. If you're just doing the right things and you're available and people see that you bring value, they can see how it's going to benefit them and their friends.
Exactly.
They want you to be a part of it. It will happen. So rather than being bummed about opportunities not being there for you, if you just keep working on your skills, being kind to people around you and trying to help others, the opportunities are coming. They're probably not as far away as you think. You know, I love that like meme that you see on the internet of like people digging and digging and digging to the diamonds and they're almost there and they're like, oh, I'm over it. You know what I mean? Like I love it because really like that's pretty accurate. Getting back to Instagram, because that I mean that's how I got a hold of you. I didn't even realize Drew knew you actually. I just DM'd you out of nowhere because somebody hit me up and there I was, you know, kind of looking for people in the Twin Cities. I've been doing so much LA stuff and like I love the Midwest. I plan on living here forever. So I'm like, I need to find more, like there's so many cool people in the Twin Cities and I don't have a network here. I don't know people really. Cool. You know? And so somebody else hit me up and they're like, you should just hit up Ian. I'm like, I don't know who that is. And he's like, oh, he does, you know, he plays for a lot of people and he sent me your page and I looked at it and I was like, this dude seems super cool. And then like watching your stuff, like the mannerisms, the energy was like, okay, this is my kind of person. Like, I want to interview this person. You know what I mean? So all I did was hit you up via Instagram, and it ended up like that's how this connection was made. But how have you used Instagram? If people were gonna go follow you, like what can they kind of expect? What's the point? What are you trying to do with it?
Here's the thing. You have to think about why you're posting. And if you are posting for yourself or to appear successful, it will not resonate in the long run. I think you have to post for a community. You have to think about a group of people that you are going to bring value toward. You use that word, and I use it a lot too. Like, you have to think about, why are you doing this? There's so many people out there that are like, check out my boat, check out my abs, come to my show, buy my thing. They're asking. They're not giving. So I decided to do a thing of giving. I wanted to do like, hey, here are the things that I do. And I wanted to make content that I wish existed. I follow all of these session bass players, Pino Palladino, Sean Hurley, who plays with like John Mayer, and there are all these people. And I wish that they made content that was like, hey, when I go into the studio, this is the bass I bring. Hey, these are the strings I use. Hey, when I played on the John Mayer record, these are the hurdles we encountered. Yeah. I would eat that shit up, and no one is making that content. So I was like, why can't I make that content? I don't have quite the same like horsepower of names and artists behind my, but I treat them like I do. I treat them like stars, and I think of them in that way. And so then I'm talking about the sessions that I do, and I'm talking about the things that I do. I'm doing play-alongs, so that if you check out any post, hopefully it's going to be either inspirational or educational. Right. Like, and hopefully also like entertaining. Like I want to combine those three things. I want it to be fun to watch. I want it to be informative, and I want it to inspire, maybe for you not to go do the same thing I'm doing, but for you to do your thing, you know? Yeah. So like I said, when I turned 40, I needed something. I was like, how am I going to do this? What's the next move? And it wasn't going to be to make a slap bass solo record. Sure. It was going to become a media company, my own media company. And that's what I did.
Yeah, I mean, you were in a position to be able to connect people and teach people, right? Yeah. And were you already teaching at that point?
Yeah, man. I mean, my first job that I made money was, I taught bass way too young. I think I was teaching at a music store when I was 17 years old, which is so dumb, teaching like teaching people how to shred, and it was so silly. But yes, I think I'm a teacher at heart. I really do. There's something I really get a lot out of connecting dots for people and having them go, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. So yeah, teaching is huge, but also I want to be on stage. Like, also I'm a performer. So it's this combo of teaching and entertainment, you know, that's kind of the thing I want to foster. And I just started to do that, and it really started to grow. Here's one other thing about Insta. I really started to think about these people as a community. And like I mentioned before, not walking away when they gave me a comment, right? Yeah. Answering DMs, treating the people that care about my channel as loved ones. And if I'm honest, my own insecurity got in the way of me thinking about that previously. I thought of them as all haters, as all shitty haters that wanted to see me fail, which that tells you more about me than it does about my audience. That's the way I used to feel, like, oh, they just want to see me crumble. It's so not true. And that's my own like awful self-loathing.
Yeah,
that
not
I
that
need
many
to deal
people are
with.
going to tune in and pay attention just to talk shit.
Exactly.
You know, that takes a lot of energy to do that all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have just decided, no, that these are really lovely people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, again, it comes back to like, what goals do you have? You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it is with the show too, is like what I really liked when I was growing up is I looked up to the people that own the skateboard shop. Yeah. They're like that older brother. Weren't necessarily a mentor, because they were in a certain way anyways, right? But I saw that opportunity because I was a parent, and I was like, okay, I can have that kind of role and be like a mentor to kids, not necessarily as a teacher, but in a similar kind of way. Yeah. And so I do that, and years went by, and I'm seeing kids, that started coming around the shop when they're 14, now going to college and doing well and graduating from college and doing all this stuff. And it was like, okay, so I can inspire people and I can mentor people. I want to do that on a grander scale, but I can only do so much myself personally.
Yeah.
My story can only inspire so many people. I can't be the mentor to everybody. I don't know everything.
Of course.
But if I take a huge group of different people from different walks of life that are successful in their own realms that all also genuinely want to help others, I can just be the outlet that people come to for me to share your story.
Definitely.
It's not me inspiring them today. It's you inspiring them today.
Yes.
You know, and then next week it's going to be somebody else that inspires them.
And you're the
with
connector.
the power of all of that, you can get a lot done.
Yeah, you really can.
You know, which is
cool.
super, super exciting. So that's the direction of my show is I'm hoping to do a lot more Midwest stuff because I was kind of having that in the back burner just because I didn't have a huge network of people there, you know, around here.
Yeah.
But I want to get to know a lot more people here. So hopefully a lot more of that's going to be happening. The show is going to keep going, or this is going to be season 9. So we've been going. For you, where are things going? The Instagram just hit 30K.
Yeah,
like
man.
Yesterday. Or today. Yeah, I was like, sick. Nice job.
It did, and then it dipped, and I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah, and then it'll come back. But anyways,
back up. Yeah,
so you just hit 30K on that, which is dope, which means you can spread your message and lessons and do all kinds of stuff that way. You just put out that live set here at Flavor World with your band. Forgive me, what is it called?
Orange Goodness.
Orange Goodness.
Yeah.
So people can go check that out. But what's happening? Are you making a lot of new music?
I mean, yes. I'm working. I just did a record out in New York, like a in the spirit of like a 60s folk protest record with Eric Hutchinson that we did it all live in a room with some of the most amazing people. Just killer.
There's a lot of people, right?
Dude, I mean, and in New York, it's just amazing. Got to work with some really heavy musicians and really like lovely people. That's going to be coming out, I think, in the next few months. Really going strong with the Orange Goodness stuff. That's a blast. There's a singer that I work with named Cara Loudon, and she and I are going to do some duo music where it's just going to be bass and vocal stuff. I love that. I have some of my own music that I'd like to put out this year. And there's just tons of sessions and all kinds of other things coming up. There's another artist I work with that's from actually New Ulm that lives out in LA now named Joey Verscazzi, just goes by Verscazzi. And we're doing stuff together. It's so much fun. I love playing on records. That's one of my very favorite things to do. And I've developed a pretty specific, I think, sound that people think of me for.
Sure.
Like, you know, going back to this Instagram thing too, of thinking about like, oh, well, what's your voice? What do you have to say? Let me posit something to you. I had this thing for a long time where I wanted to play synthesizer sounds, but I'm bad at keyboard.
Okay.
And so I would find pedals to do that stuff on the bass guitar, but I would always qualify it in sessions and be like, I'll put this down as a placeholder, and then maybe you'll get like a real synth player, you'll find a cool patch or whatever. And then I talked to a friend who said, hey, check this out, man. The thing that you feel the most vulnerable about your playing or what you do as an artist, that's actually your shit. And it made me think of this sentence, your vulnerability is your voice. So the thing that I always was trying to hide about my playing, I just figured out a way to turn it forward and actually talk, and not like, oh, it's kind of shitty, but actually be like, no, I think this is actually really dope. I'm not saying it's the same as playing a Prophet or a Moog,
sure,
but I'm saying it's a different thing and it's my thing.
Sure.
And so I end up using that voice and sound on a bunch of projects as well. I use that sound with the Orange Goodness. I use it a lot with Verscazzi. And it's something that I just had to get comfortable with sharing because I was worried, if I'm honest. It's always high school, dude. It's always high school.
Yeah.
I'm worried that people are going to be like, that's stupid.
Yep.
And it's just about getting over the fear of judgment. Yep. Right. And if someone's like, that's stupid, for me to be able to say, all good, like, I just don't think you get it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's, I
you know
literally,
what I mean?
The post I made yesterday about my artwork was like that. It was the same exact thing of like, I didn't think I was good at this. At some point in my life, I just didn't care anymore if I was good at it.
Yes.
And that's when I started doing it a lot. And then people are like, oh, I really like this. And I'm like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that look at my artwork and are like, this is not good. And I'm like, some people think it is,
dude.
So I like it.
It's
so
your
I'm gonna
voice.
keep doing what I like, and there's enough people that like it that I make some money on it. You don't have to like it. Not everyone's gonna like it.
In
anyways.
fact, plenty of people shouldn't.
Right.
It shouldn't resonate with everyone, or else what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. I mean, if you're out there listening to this and you think, what's my thing? What's the thing that you actually think you might really love that you're scared of?
Yeah.
Do you know everything about Pokemon cards? Like, sick. Like, set up a Pokemon card page.
Well, the energy flows through.
Yes.
People will see that. They'll see that you're excited and enthusiastic about this thing. And
Yes.
then they'll be drawn to that, whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And for me, it's so weird. It was making my bass guitar sound like a synthesizer.
Are you going to be playing shows like where people can hear that live?
Yeah, for sure.
I suppose you'll probably post about it on your Instagram, right? If people just follow you on Instagram, which was at Ian Martin Allison, they'll see like when you have shows and stuff coming up, and you're going to be doing some stuff around this area.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. All right, I really want to see him. I interviewed Samantha Moon not long ago. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's an R&B singer in like the Twin Cities area, and I interviewed her right after a show. Like, I didn't even see the show. Yeah. And I was really bummed. She sang on the show, and I was like, oh, my God, I need to come see it. Anyways, so I told you this before. We always come to the same two questions near the end of the show. This is where it comes down to, like, the inspirational storytelling experience. Hopefully, some of these stories already inspired people anyways. But I always ask the same ones because I think when you do something you're passionate about, you end up having really cool, unique experiences more so than, like, what your regular 9-to-5 job would get you.
Yep.
And they're the reason you're willing to make less money and put all this work in. So what's an experience that you've gotten to have that you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to pursue your passion for music?
I had a phone call. I had a 20-minute phone call with Bakiti Kumalo, who is the bass player for Paul Simon. He played on the Graceland record when Paul Simon traveled to South Africa during apartheid and played with all these amazing South African musicians. And Bakiti has a singular voice on the electric bass. He plays fretless electric bass, and he was a huge inspiration. So I learned all the tunes off of Graceland when I was a kid. So like You Can Call Me Al and Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes and Graceland and Boy in the Bubble. And I did an album breakdown of that for Scott's Bass Lessons on YouTube, and it got a lot of views, and Bakiti himself watched it, and he he checked it out, and he tried to get in touch with the channel and was like, who did that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's this guy, Ian. And he's like, well, can I talk to him? And I mean, this dude is a legend in the bass community, and a huge legend for me, like one of my favorite bass players and artists of all time.
Yeah.
And he called me, and I have a voicemail saved on my phone where he was like, hello, Ian, my name is Bakiti. And he was like real sweet and like saying it slowly so that I'd know who he is. I'm like, bro,
I know who you are.
I know who you are. And I got to talk to him, and I got to ask him a couple questions. And the craziest thing, like I got to ask him about this bass line on Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes, which I think is one of the best bass lines of all time. But two things he said to me that were so incredible. Like I was like, oh, how did you know you wanted to play the fretless bass? Was it Jocko, or was it, these heroes? And he said there were two basses on the wall at the shop in South Africa, and one had the metal things going across the fretboard and one didn't. And the one that didn't was $40 cheaper. And I bought that, and I was like, oh shit, it was so cool. It was like so gritty, and like I thought it was some elaborate plan, right? And he was like, no, I didn't have enough money to get the one with frets. And it created like an incomparable voice. And the second thing that he said was, he said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He said, why did you want to break down my bass playing? And I said, what? And he said, why did you want to do that? And I was like, Bakiti, because you're a master. Like, and he said, oh, I just have never thought of myself that way. I said, you're kidding. Like, you are a singular voice. Like, you are one of the greatest of all time. And he said, I never thought that anyone would want to do that, because, I see the stuff that you guys post on your channel, and it's all these other bass heroes like Victor Wooten and Les Claypool and Flea. And I was like, Bakiti, you're one of those guys though. Like you're just one of them.
Right.
And he was like, I don't think I am. And I thought, holy shit, we all are suffering from this imposter syndrome. Like, he's one of the greatest bass players ever, and he didn't think that he had what it took to be featured on a right. And it was wild, and it made me really lean into thinking about imposter syndrome and thinking about like my voice and what I want to accomplish. And it was just amazing to hear him, who I consider to be one of the greats, say that he didn't he also didn't think he was good enough. It was like very humanizing. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome, I actually bring it up on the show a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of younger people haven't heard the term. And I'm like, dude, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah,
we
for sure.
And the funny thing is like, if you're looking for people to critique you, if you're like, oh, I hope no one critiques me, I hope no one dislikes this, you're going to find people that don't like it. And then you're going to focus on that.
Oh, I know.
If you flip it and you go, I wonder if anyone likes this.
Yeah.
Everyone who follows you probably likes it. There's a lot of people that like what you do. Focus on that. It's hard to like push the negatives out.
Yeah.
But if you can just focus on the positives, it's I guess I'm not sure how to say it, but like you don't need to please everybody. Not everyone's going to think that. Some people are going to think you're an imposter no matter what you do. There will people that are going to think that about you, but you can't let yourself be one of those people.
Oh, that's so good. And can I tell you just a brief anecdote? Check it out. I played a show at the Troubadour in LA with Eric Hutchinson. A friend of mine named Steve Jenkins, who's a bad motherfucker on the bass, was in the audience, and he told me he was going to come. I didn't think he was going to come, and he was there. And I saw him, and it freaked me out, right? And I was like, oh, is he going to think what I played is cool? Is it like all that stuff? And the show went fine or whatever. But afterwards, I saw him, and he was nice, and he said nice things. And I said, dude, thank you for coming, but also fuck you for coming. Because I was so in my head the whole time. And he's like, why? And I'm like, because you're Steve Jenkins, dude. And he goes, and he said this thing that I think about every day. He goes, no, man. He's like, it's lanes. He goes, you're Wolverine and I'm Thor. Like, I'm not mad that you have the dope claws, and you're not mad that I have the hammer. Like, if you think about the superhero analogy, they're not all pining away for the other person's power.
Right.
Every superhero has a power, and they have a burden, but they have a voice. They're very singular in what they do, right? And they're a thing. And so why not double down? Why not decide, work hard on your craft, decide that you're a superhero, and double down on that thing that you do that makes you different than the other superheroes. You're in your own lane, and like, be cool with it, love it, embrace it. Like, that's him saying that to me was like a huge unlock. I loved it.
Yeah, that's about as good of advice as you can get. I mean, it's very much the whole idea of like, who's the best Ian Martin Allison that exists? Well, I mean, it can only be you.
Yes. I'm
the only one. There's a lot of Chris Johnson. They're not going to be the best one, but specifically this version of Chris Johnson, nobody else can be, right?
That's
so
right.
If you're trying to imitate somebody else, that person's already better at being that person. You'll never be the best version of that. You just can't.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really quick again, where can people go find you, listen to your stuff if they want to like go on Spotify? Obviously, you're with a lot of artists, right? So where can they find you?
Yeah.
How can they keep up with you? And then how can they best support you moving forward?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on Instagram at Ian Martin Allison. I do have a Spotify playlist. I'm going to make it for Apple too soon. It's just if you go to Ian Martin Allison on Spotify and on Apple Music, there's a playlist that's called Ian Martin Allison of all the artists that I've played with. And I keep that pretty up to date if you want to check it out. In terms of moving forward and the best way to support me, just come say hi on Instagram. Come say hi. I'm not trying to sell you something. So I'm not asking anything of you. If you want to come say hi, that would be an amazing way to support. I'd like to say hi back.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people this all the time. One of the best things you can do for any creator is to just send them a message saying like, hey, I really like what you are doing.
Yeah.
Because when I get a compliment like that, when I get just a message that says, hey, I really like the show, that actually means a lot to me. And that sticks with me through the entire day.
Yeah.
So like that's worth way more than $5 or $10 or whatever to me. Yeah. So if that's the easiest way, you can hit me up too. There are ways to obviously financially support the show. There's a Patreon, so patreon.com/passionpod. There's bonus episodes come out early, and that's just the easiest way to support financially if that's the way that you can support. Also passionpod.org, there's like merch and stuff. So like if you want to buy t-shirts or whatever, that's totally fine. But just sharing stuff, talking about the show, telling people, hey, I listened to this guy was cool, you should go listen to Ian's stuff. Like paying attention to what this whole collective of people is doing is extremely helpful.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.